Welcome back. In this section of On Point, I have Seilen Haokip, spokesperson and senior leader of the Kuki National Organization, KNO, and UPF are umbrella organization of 25 insurgent groups that signed the SoO Pact in 2008. They have 7 camps each, and their approved list of cadres stands roughly around 2,200. They mostly have automatic weapons. Earlier this year, Manipur Assembly had passed a resolution abrogating the suspension of the Operations Pact with these 2 organizations. Let me straight away begin this interview by asking you met A.K. Mishra in Delhi last week. He's the interlocutor. How did the talks go?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Kartikeya. Just before we go on, I'd just like to make one technical matter correct. We are not insurgents. We are a group of people trying to defend ourselves from any kind of eventuality that threatens our lives, as is well known all around. So we'd rather call ourselves people out of necessity, fighting for our constitutional rights, but the weapons are there, not aimed at the security forces. It is to defend ourselves only against any kind of aggression that is, a reality. So sorry to just introduce you with that. And back to your question, yes. Last week, from the 19th, 20th, and 21st, there was a meeting held in Delhi, chaired by Mr. A.K. Mishra, the advisor Northeast. And it was to do with extension of suspension of operations, which has been ongoing, a tripartite agreement, which is legal, binding to the center, the state, and the SoO groups. Now, from 2008, extensions have been held periodically, sometimes for a year, sometimes for 6 months. And the last extension was due on the 29th of February this year, 2024. However, as you just mentioned, the state government of Manipur had unilaterally abrogated SoO on grounds that the SoO groups had violated ground rules. And ground rules pertain to behavior on ground. There's nothing politically attached to the aspects of suspension of operations. Political dialogue is held in a different format, chaired by the advisor Northeast. And the extension matter, ground matters, are dealt with by the Joint Secretary Northeast from the MHA. Now, since the state had declined to come for reasons that they have already expressed, the center had asked us to please wait until they prevail on the state government, because basically the philosophical, ideological basis, if you like, of SoO is to create an atmosphere conducive for people to talk in a decent manner. So this has been going on, and talks have been going on. But unfortunately, despite the fact that the Union Home Minister had called for peace before any kind of political settlement within the country, of course, that we complied, and the state refused to. And I wouldn't like to go into the details of those unless you want me to elaborate, but the state was under some compulsion within the Valley of Manipur, where they were, in a sense, forced to sign against, the diktat of a group to abrogate. So violations are petty, sometimes serious, but they're always resolved because they're really nothing seriously against the aspect of peace for SoO.
What are the expectations of your umbrella organization from the Home Minister, because you use the word sue for peace?
Yes. See, we wield arms for our protection. And we have never used our weapons against the Indian security forces because we're not secessionists, but for self-defense. Unfortunately, from the 3rd of May last year, we were aggressed upon, firstly, in Imphal, where we were most vulnerable amidst the population of 60% of the state, out of which I think 80% must be the valley people. And we were ethnically cleansed from Imphal starting 3rd of May and still ongoing. After Imphal, it was the foothills the borders between the valley districts and the hill districts. And exchange of fire happened because the aggression that started in Imphal persisted into the hills, at the foothills, and there our volunteers had to defend themselves to stop that. And of course, the government of India very appropriately brought central forces by air, and there are almost 50 to 60,000 central paramilitary forces, etc., who are guarding the buffer zone as well as the valley and the hills to ensure that there's no escalation of violence, incidents of firing. And I want to underline the fact that our people have never crossed the buffer zone into the valley to attack the valley inhabitants. On the other hand, the valley has, since 3rd of May, using state forces, attacked us and tried to penetrate the buffer zone. And on many occasions, they succeeded. And hundreds of our villages, little hamlets, vulnerable, were burnt down. And many of our people also shot. So that's the picture, to be very clear for all concerned.
Mr. Haokip, let me bring you back to the conversation that is taking place between your group and the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Yes.
Has the violation of the ground rules committed by KUKI groups been conveyed to you? 1, 2, 3, 4?
See, at every SoO extension meeting, violations are brought forth. And till date, since 2008, to be fair, we listened to the lists of allegations from the side of the government, and from our side, there were none, literally nil. Until now, of course, 3rd of May, the state machinery was used against us. And at this meeting now, our allegations would also come up, for which there is documented video clips, etc., of the state persecuting us. So now, the talks for the discussions for SoO extension started, as I said, 19, 20, and 21st of this month, but we have not proceeded because so far the government of India has, through its advisor, Northeast, presented the format for the discussion or the proposals for how to deal with issues of ground rules violations, relocation of campsites, etc. And we have said we also need to submit our proposals, for which we need to go back to our respective homes, deal with our constituents, and then come back. So we expect the meetings would continue in the near future with our proposals as well, and negotiations on issues of SoO ground rules resume.
Are you open to the idea of relocation of the camps in the interior?
Provided the rationale behind it is positive and it is not to our detriment. Definitely, we are compliant. We are not secessionists.
And did you get to meet the Home Minister, Amit Shah?
No, we never have had to meet him on these issues because these are ground rule matters. It simply means security forces should not shoot at us and we should not shoot at them. And so, unfortunately, from 3rd of May, that has happened. And now the violence has to be contained, and we are compliant. SoO is for peace, and we are compliant. Now, Home Minister is for peace, and we are compliant, as I said. The state ought to be on board too. For reasons best known to themselves and many all around, they are not.
Okay. Now, let me take you to a different subject. Why are KUKI civil society organizations and other KUKI groups pushing for separate administration when it stokes great anxiety in the other ethnicities of Manipur? Because it's like you're breaking a state.
Thank you. That's a very, very relevant point. And we need to turn the table around again on that issue. Now, pre-3rd May, all these years since 2008, when we signed a suspension of operations, and our political demand was for autonomous territorial council within the state of Manipur, purely constitutional. We were denied that for a long time, but we were nearing the end with the, the state coming forward a bit and the center also making, good progress with us. But on the 3rd of May, all hell broke loose on the pretext that violence started in Churachandpur, which is not true. There was a peaceful rally in Churachandpur. Preceding that, a few days earlier, in protest against the government's arbitrary diktat on forest issues, with them, again, abrogating something that was already signed in 1966 or so, and declaring those areas no longer for us to be able to live, because the authority in 1960s who prevailed, the government authority, he was incompetent, etc. That's the kind of situation we are in. Very sort of arbitrary and irrational. So in protest, people burnt the forest office in Churchandpur. It was not a protest against the Meitei or any ethnicity. It was against the government. Hundreds of such cases have happened in Imphal. They're not directed against any particular community. It is against the government. And there were no casualties. So 3rd of May, there was a protest against the demand for ST. They have the right to demand. We have the right to also protest peacefully, democratically. And that was going on in all the hills of Manipur. Now, while the peaceful rally was going on in Lamka, a few miles down, nearing.
Why do you call it Lamka? A lot of people say that, names are being changed.
Of course, why not? That is our own parlance. We have the right to call anything we want in our area. Now, officially, it may not be. Now, you're insinuating that it should be Churchandpur because that's a legal official term. That we acknowledge. But before Churchandpur came to being in 1921, I think, after the Anglo-Kuki War, the British official, the SDO, invited the Meitei king of Imphal, who has no jurisdiction in the hills at all, except under the aegis of the British administration, and the SDO, to, rule us through that mechanism administratively, which the Romans did to the British in England as well.
I think that's
it is not.
I don't want to cut you short. I know. What happens is
you're aware of that history,
and it becomes contested. I really want to focus on the real hard issues which are about to bring peace in Manipur.
Okay, then we need to deal with the facts, the truths. Okay, and I will respond.
Absolutely, I will. This interview is a conversation. I'm not here to have a conversation on behalf of different communities. It's a conversation and a perspective.
You're not drilling me. I'm aware of that. I'm just, because time constraints.
I just want to get you back to this, because there are a lot of issues which people would like to know. For example, why didn't Kuki community didn't feel a candidate from outer Manipur?
Well, we were in a situation where there are 3 ethnic communities in Manipur. There are Nagas, there are Kukis, there are Meiteis. Now, with the kind of developments, formulations that were coming up in terms of alliances, see, this is a very pertinent point, and I hate to stretch it out, but it's important also, but you can cut me short anytime. See, the Outer Manipur constituency has about 8 assembly constituencies that are from the valley. They have a say in who wins and who loses. And the Meiteis, pardon me for using an ethnic name, were lining up with the Nagas against the Kukis. I'm not saying Nagas are against us, but the Meiteis, because of the war with us, wanted to support the Naga and, ensure that we don't get elected. So in that circumstance, we are not stupid. We may not be very clever, but we are not stupid. We decided it's best not to participate, and it's in sync with our political objective of separate administration.
Okay.
It served both ends.
Okay, fair enough. When I started this coverage, a lot of panelists who came from the Kuki communities would talk about autonomy under 6th schedule.
Earlier,
over a period of time,
yes,
it turned into a union territory.
Okay,
Why has that happened?
Let me interrupt. I'll explain that clearly. Pre-3rd May, as I mentioned earlier, our demand was for autonomous territorial council within the state of Manipur. But on 3rd of May, all that went out of kilter. So we were not only ethnically cleansed from the valley, we were continually being persecuted with state machinery. So how can we go back to our pre-3rd demand for anything within the state of Manipur? Therefore, our MLAs submitted a memorandum to the Union Home Minister saying, now we have no option. We are compelled to demand for separate administration within the Constitution of India. Thereabout, from 3rd of May, post 3rd of May, the change from district autonomy, sort of self-governance within Manipur we asked for a constitutional provision under SA which crystallized into union territory with legislature, just like Pondicherry or Delhi or any other UT. Small population, direct rule from the center, because we want to be secure. Right now, it is the state of Manipur against the Kukis. And we are helpless. We need constitutional support. We need the direct rule from the center for our survival. That is the bottom line. We have no enmity personal against any community.
Okay, there are two dominant issues. One is of poppy cultivation and another is of illegal immigration.
I'll tell you about that.
Let me complete my question. I'll not interrupt you.
Sorry, I hope I'm not in a hurry.
Would you have to see it in a context that, don't you think that illegal immigration is causing anxiety in the larger Manipur, that the demography is changing?
Shall I answer that first?
Absolutely.
Illegal immigration is the perception and premise that the state government, dominated by the Valley people, way of naming it. In Mizoram, they are refugees, which they are, fleeing persecution from Myanmar by the military. It's the same ethnic stock that are coming across. In Mizoram, they are welcome. In Manipur, they are called illegal immigrants. You deduce and you decide.
Okay.
In terms of numbers also, Mizoram has over 40,000. In Manipur, it's in the hundreds.
And poppy cultivation?
Poppy cultivation has been there all over in the hills. Why focus only on the Kukis? This shows that the whole ethnic cleansing and the genocide that came about was premeditated from years before. This is not something that erupted on the 3rd of May. Our houses for the last 2-3 years were marked out in Imphal. Red paint was marked on our gates, and the people who came to do their survey purported to be government municipal officers. And on the 3rd of May, it all went, and there are Nagas who are tribals as us who have protested against the ST. But how were they able to so clinically single out the Kukis? Could it have happened just like on the 3rd of May? Because of some, misrepresented violence that took place in Lamka? There's a medical college there. A girl had been apparently killed, raped, and wrapped in a plastic. And this was set viral in Imphal, which started the burning and killing. And it was found that girl, the woman, poor woman, was of a person somewhere in Delhi. Some family affair, this picture had come out, and this was used in Imphal. And look what has happened till today. Over 200 have died because of these misrepresentations, false allegations, false narratives, which unfortunately some people in Delhi also are subscribing to, sadly, including a spaced out scientist.
Mr. Haokip,
Yes.
India is a democracy. People are elected. Manipur is part of the Indian Union. Lawmakers are elected. Why are Kuki MLAs boycotting the legislative process?
Because they have been killed and their houses looted and chased out of Imphal. They have been physically, attacked. One of our MLAs is a vegetable today. Out of 10, one is completely vegetized, if you like. He was electrocuted, beaten. He's just breathing now. This happened. He was the advisor to the CM. Now, do you think if you were an MLA, you would go back to Imphal and go and attend the assembly sessions? Put yourselves in our position. We are a small minority. We are being blamed for the problems. That ethnic cleansing took place, and it happened in Lamka and More also. None of the Meiteis who are in Lamka and More, who were safely evacuated, you talk to them. They weren't raped, they weren't killed. Our women, the ladies, the women of the hills, ensured that the Assam Rifles took them down to Imphal. On the contrary, ours were killed, raped, and when we tried to escape, they tried to stop us so that they can kill us. Look, which narrative is going to change that? I'm sorry.
So, I mean to say, in this case, there has to be a ground for reconciliation.
Absolutely. We are for peace.
Even in this case, let me tell you, there has to be a reconciliation.
Yes, there has to be. Now, come forward with the right mechanism to do that. What happened in South Africa? How did peace and reconciliation take place, for example, during the apartheid? Now, come up with something.
Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
People should not say we should reconcile. Yes, we will reconcile. How are we going to reconcile? Has anybody come up with a stratagem for that? This is not some social issue. This is physical killing and raping and parading our women for the world to see.
Let me get back to the meetings which you had held with the advisor in Delhi, because ultimately these are the issues bit by bit lead to peace. Can you take guarantee of the fact that all the weapons are secure, which are part of the SoO Pact under the lock?
Yes, we have complied with that, and the security forces go and inspect it every month. You can do that every week also, we don't mind. Because, as I said, we are not secessionists. We will comply, and we have been compliant. Okay, there are some petty law and order issues because the cadres are hungry. The state government has not paid the stipend which the center sends for 2 years. How are they going to survive? And then we are blamed for violations. When the state violated against us, they exercise their constitutional rights using state machinery, state assets to attack us. That is constitutionally, constitutional the head as well as the state forces utilizing those assets against us, which is violation. Our cadres troubling somebody for 10 rupees or using the state machinery to kill people. I'm sorry. So reconciliation, how are you going to deal with? Sorry, I'm not trying to answer.
I mean to say, you have the right. You have the right to express your grievance, outrage, anger. I mean, it's perfectly okay. But I think the way forward has to be reconciliation.
And I say I'm agreeable. We are agreeable. How are we going to do that is the question. We have ideas. If government has ideas, we are willing to talk. We are already talking. This can be a feature of the talks. This time, the government has a proposal a little different from that format. So it's not imposing on us. They're saying, this is how we want to do it. So
how would you describe the proposal?
Oh, just that they, rather than bring it on the day of the extension meeting, we'll do it separately with certain groups upon whom there are allegations. We are saying, we are happy to, we'll comply with the dealing of the violations, but let it be in the standard format because we like to maintain normalcy in every respect. So that is our proposal, not counter proposal. Counter is sort of negative, but you mean the same, I mean the same. So our proposal in that respect is, let us do it in the way it has always been done. And now the second is relocation of camps. And government has proposed their spots with geopolitical mapping and all that, Google mapping. So we couldn't do that at the office. At the meeting. So we said we will go and consult our constituents, and we are doing that. And now we have our proposals. So when government is ready to resume talks, we'll sit down again and hear, this is our proposals. We'll talk about it, and it'll be fine.
And lastly, how are the conditions of the internally displaced people in the hill areas?
Terrible, terrible. Those valley people displaced from Moray and Imphal, they're in the valley, and they are being catered for by the state. Ours are not being catered for by the state. Some NGOs, some philanthropists, churches are coming and helping out. Not only that, funds meant for the hills in our areas are not reaching us. Essential supplies that comes from the highway, we were asked to open the blockade, which we are protesting against, and on humanitarian grounds. We complied. It has to reach Imphal and then go to the rest of the hills. In Imphal, it is blocked. Where is justice? Where is fairness? How are you going to have reconciliation? Please tell me.
A lot of Methi organizations say that the Kuki organizations block a lot of roads and the food and other supplies don't reach the valley.
I'll send you a journalist to verify. The main area is the highway in Kanghopi, and it's going on even today against the sort of, displeasure of our own people. They're saying, why are you letting them go when they're blocking it in Imphal? Even medicine, not only funds from the central government designated for us, it was also not reaching us. Even cadre's stipend have not been paid, 6,000 a head for 2 years. So where is equitability?
Okay. Before we close this conversation, when are you expected to meet the ministry officials? And in your own timeline, when do you think that there will be some sort of a meeting round between your organization and the ministry? And do you think that the SoO Pact will be extended?
Yes, I mean, for all practical purposes and other governmental norms also, because government, Home Minister wants peace, SoO is for peace. Since 2008, peace in the hills as a dividend of SoO is openly there. It's only the state who is against it for reasons everybody knows actually. They don't want SoO Pact to be extended so that there'll be no political dialogue and there'll be no settlement. They accuse us of breaking Manipur. Who has broken Manipur? Please, I ask you the question. Is it us or what happened in the valley from the 3rd of May and preceding that?
And lastly, Mr. Haokip, do you think that there is a possibility that this logjam may continue on the SoO Pact?
It ought not to. As far as the center is concerned, they have asked us one or two things. We are bringing our proposals. We'll sit down, and there's nothing contrary really in our proposals. We are looking at, our interest, and we respect the government's points of view, and we'll be reasonable as we have always been.
So thank you for speaking with News 9 Live. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This was the kind of terrain that mountaineers